If you're a millennial, you might have been faced with a challenge buying a home. Welcome to Homes Made Simple. Cheryl Plouffe here, Darryl Van Sickle. We're going to dive into this topic. So, Darryl, Business Insider just released a report, an article, shall we say, that talks about how millennials will never be able to buy a good home. And you have a very different take and approach to this topic, and I'd love for you to share it with us today. Is that your feeling as well? That millennials are really behind the ball as far as home ownership is concerned?
If they're just getting into the market now, the market's moving back in their favor. Prices are coming down, they're becoming more affordable. If they are in the market or just happen to get in the market at the very peak, that's when they bought. Hopefully, their financing and everything is set. But for people moving forward or younger people, I would maybe say under the millennials, they're by the time the market's all sorted out, the housing prices will probably be back to normal as far as relative to income and price, or average income and average price.
Is that the biggest issue that they're facing is just the price of the homes themselves, or what other issues is coming up for them?
I, I would say probably one of the biggest issues people are finding is that there's been so many speculators who have made a lot of money over the last 10 years. They can buy a house or buy a brand new build and then wait 6 months and make 100 grand. That's a pretty good gig if when things are going well. And with zero interest rates, it made it even easier. And that's part of why you saw the prices shoot up so much. So in 2020, I think it was phase two when the openings in Ontario happened. I don't know, all of a sudden the market just took off. And all the builders I talked to just sold everything. Anything and everything they had, they sold it. Stuff I talked to some and they said some of the projects they weren't going to work on for 2 years were sold out. It just once the money hit zero, as far as like cost to borrow it, everything just sold. So now when you talk to these same builders, almost none of their sales are to end users. Every single one is to speculators. So that's a massive inventory of houses that are coming onto the market with technically no owner.
Right.
There's no one that's
Okay.
the people buying that aren't buying it to live in it. They're buying it expecting it to flip, and it's not going to
Right. So the premise of I think of this article in Business Insider was to say that recessions, debt, soaring home prices, mortgage rates, et cetera, like those are all the problems that millennials are facing. But you brought up a really good point, which is that what would be stopping again that age group, people who were born, early 80s to late 90s, to actually themselves be in the speculative space, right? Is that something that is a viable option for them? It's like, well, maybe they need to be the people who are speculating.
Well, speculating is gambling. It just sounds nicer. Um,
True.
it does. Oh, I'm going to invest. No, no, you're speculating. You're hoping something happens that makes you money. You're not actually guaranteeing anything. Um, I think there's a lot of opportunity coming for millennials. I think there's huge opportunities coming for millennials. It's just got to look in the right places. I mean, if you're looking at all the negatives, everything's falling. Okay, well, that means things are getting cheaper. So if you're positioning yourself in a position where when everyone else is unfortunately, say, worst case scenario, losing their house, you should be hopefully in a position to buy them because the prices will go back up. They will go back up with inflation being as high as it is eventually. When it corrects, it normally overcorrects. Unfortunately, it's just kind of the nature of markets. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunities coming up in the future for people, especially millennials, where they could do very, very well if they position themselves correctly.
I was reading too, I think that millennials are the generation that has lived with their parents the longest. And I think about that and I think, well, is maybe that's an opportunity, right? It'd be socking money away if you're working or what have you for that opportunity that comes up. So what advice do you have for millennials to prepare them to be ready to pounce when an opportunity arises?
I've been a big believer in if you're buying a home, buy it for living. Uh, some people do where they'll buy in areas where the house will appreciate. And that's fine. I live where I want to live and I'm comfortable living. But if you're going to invest, look for places where you're going to make the most out of it. Um, if you were looking at investing, at least myself personally, I want to keep an eye on the inventory and the prices. So when I start to see the prices level off and inventory rise, or I guess everything kind of level off as far as where it looks like there'd be a bottom. Watch the interest rates leveling off, watch the inventory, it'll be higher for sure. kind of leveling off, and then watch the average sale price. Once that's basically kind of established itself, that's the time to buy for investments, in my opinion. That's when I would buy.
You made a good point there, though, about buying instead of buying the house with the hey, it's going to appreciate, or I'm going to building equity or whatever. You really just buy your home to live in. And I wonder what your opinion is about this movement, the tiny home movement or the tiny house movement, where a lot of younger people are kind of looking at options and saying, well, do I really need a 3,000 square foot home to live in? Could I be happy in living in maybe a tiny home or a smaller home and just making that really my own? Is that what you're talking about when you say buy the home to live in?
The tiny home, I would say if I was looking at one of those, it would probably be a better alternative than renting. If you're looking at renting right now, the prices are extremely high. Plus, let's say you find a house, it's a nice place, you got a good rent. Well, the owner can just decide to sell it, and then you're moving. I always looked at home ownership as basically rent control, right? You're never going to get kicked out of it as long as you pay your bill, as long as you don't refinance. Well, I guess interest rates will have a check, but basically, you know what your costs are going to be, and going forward, it's going to be pretty steady. Where with rent, there will be increases in rent, and it's not yours. And if the owner just decides they want to cash in, they can sell the house, and there's nothing you can do about it. The tiny homes, I don't like the tiny homes. They're they're not really functional. I mean, if you want to own something, okay, they're cheap. But right now, we're switching over into a buyer's market. And if you have something that no one wants, how are you going to sell it? Like, you're not buying a tiny home because you really want to live in a small home. You're buying a tiny home because the prices have become so inflated, at least in my opinion. So if all of
Yeah,
a sudden things switch, what do you do with it?
right.
You could rent it,
I just
right?
think that I just think the tiny home movement is probably more indicative of the idea of really just having a place to live in, and as opposed to thinking about it from an investment perspective or something like that. But to your point, what do you do with it when you're done with living in that home? I guess if you move up into another neighborhood or a bigger home, what do you do with it? Maybe that's a
A
conversation
tiny home is
for
a place to call home. It's a landing
yeah,
spot.
yeah,
It's yours. It's yours.
it's
So no
yours.
matter what, it's yours. Whether it's the future value of it, it'll go up, it'll go down, but
Yeah.
it's yours. You never got to worry about being evicted just because someone else wants to sell it. You're in control of the destiny there, and I like that. It
Yeah,
would be very
yeah.
hard to be in a position where all of a sudden you just don't know. Like, all of a sudden you get the notice, hey, we're putting the house up for sale, and now you're in a market where the prices just keep going up for renting. So yeah, it'd be tough.
So, last word on millennials who are trying to find a home. What do you say to them?
Finding a home right now, if you're a first time buyer, I would say you could be aggressive. Take your time. The it is the prices are coming down, and find the house you're looking for. Don't be afraid to put in an offer on a property where that looks as though where the market's at right now. They might not accept it, and that's fine. Just take your time, find the house you want, and buy it.
Good advice. I love it. How do people get in touch with you, Darryl? If we have whether it be millennials watching or listening, or people who know people like, who are struggling to find a home, how would they reach out to you and to your beautiful wife, Jessica?
Facebook is easy. You can message us at Jessica and Darryl Van Sickle. We're at Remax Twin City. You could always reach out to our office. Instagram, homesmadesimple.ca. We're pretty easy to find. Google, search us. We're everywhere. So
Awesome. Yeah, I love this conversation. And, again, Homes Made Simple. Be sure to follow Daryl's accounts. We do these episodes regularly to be able to support you and really make real estate easy and simple for you. So thanks so much, Daryl. I think this is a great conversation and will help some people move forward in trying to their home ownership and
hopefully, if
trying to
you have
get
any
their homes.
questions, I'm always here to answer.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.